Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the book club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana and I am delighted to have a wonderful guest on my show today. Very, very excited because we are going to be delving into both a collection of prose and poetry, which literally is like the best subject ever that anyone can talk to me about. So I am joined in the studio by Sai Assari. So she is a poet and self-published author of Dreamers Collection, available on Amazon, writing under the name Dawn's Fragrance on Instagram. Her work explores themes of religion, culture, love, and loss. So I'm now going to welcome Sai onto the show. Assalamu alaikum, Sai.
Wa alaikum assalam. Hello, everybody.
It's so lovely. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. I know it's been a
Of course.
while since I first spoke with you, and I was like, I need to have you on my show.
It's been
And
a few
then,
months, yeah.
in between that time, I got my hands on a copy of your collection, which has been absolutely
hmm
amazing and a joy to read. So let's delve straight in. Okay, so my first question for you is, what inspired you to start writing?
Yeah, sure. Um, I think all all writers they start off as readers, don't they?
Mm.
You fall in love with language before you even try to shape it yourself. Um, I think sometimes like you read something and it moves you, and it could be a sentence or a line, and maybe it could be like a moment in a book that you've read, and you're you think like I want to do that. I want to be able to make somebody feel that way, and I felt like that a lot. I'm somebody that's drawn to books that talk about the human experience. I love books that make you feel. I love being depressed over books. I love it when an author makes you deeply feel for a character, and you think about that character beyond the pages. You go to sleep thinking about them as if they're a real person. And I love it when books make you cry and you carry that emotion with you days after you finish reading that book. And I've always just found that so powerful. Like, how is it that language can make you cry and laugh and weep, and that just held so much power, and that's something I myself wanted to do. um and I was a creative writing student in when I was in college. I took literature and creative writing in university, so language is something that I studied and I loved. um
Mm.
and I think writing it kind of found me when I was at a time when I was feeling all these big emotions and I didn't know what to do with it. And you can't, you don't want to be that friend that's always whinging and whining and crying, and
Mm.
so you resort to writing things down. Reading gave me language to use as a tool, and writing allowed me to express those feelings. um Feelings like grief, loss, heartache, missing people who are still alive. You have friendships that break and you never talk to that person again. You've got family members that pass on, and you don't know what to do with all the feelings that are left behind. All
Yeah.
these like quiet sort of things that we're not really taught how to talk about, and especially in a community where emotions are sort of meant to be like folded up neatly and stored away
Mm.
somewhere in silence. We don't really talk about our feelings that much.
Mm.
But I think I think the point where I stopped consuming stories and actually had the desire to start writing them myself was probably during high school, when it's really embarrassing to say. It is when I discovered something called Wattpad, and I think maybe a lot of
Mm.
people that love reading or readers will be familiar with this, and they'll probably be rolling their eyes thinking, "Oh my God, that cringe website." But I was 13 years old,
Mm.
um, and I burned through like every single book in my school library. I was such an avid reader; I couldn't stop reading. It sort of became an addiction, and I burnt through all the books in my library. Had I was reading like three, four books at a time.
Mm.
And then suddenly I came across this unfiltered universe of, I don't want to say literature, of books on the internet,
Mhm.
being Wattpad. And many of those stories are written by 13-year-olds that well, really didn't know the difference between you are and your, and
Mm.
wrote didn't weren't like the best of writers, but some of the stories there, they were gems. They were gems hiding in rubble.
Mm.
And what was really interesting is that these stories were written by people my age,
Mm.
teenagers that never published a book, that never studied literature, but they still wrote these beautiful stories that, they moved me, they made me cry, they stayed with me, and I thought about them, and I still think about them years and years later. um and I
Mm.
think that fact changed something in me, because growing up, when I think about writing, I think about professionals, right? Like those literary giants, like, you know 50-year-old authors who,
Mm.
like the likes of George Martin or Tolkien or Khalid Hosseini, like people that are established. That's what I would think about when I think about writers.
Mm.
But now I was reading like these beautiful raw stories, and they're written by people my age who
Mm.
don't really know what they're writing, but they're doing such a good job at it.
Mm.
And I that felt powerful to me, because it sort of made me feel like maybe, it made being a writer feel like it was something that was possible.
Mm.
And I didn't really feel like I had to be qualified in order to achieve something like that. And it kind of gave me courage to try and write my own stories.
Mm.
Um, so
No.
yeah, so it's all over the place, but that's sort of my answer.
No, it didn't sound all over the place at all. I mean, I think you've really beautifully encapsulated, I guess, your own journey in terms of, like you said, being an avid reader,
Hmm.
and maybe perhaps that kind of sense of catharsis when you then start to write. And like you said, because you were sitting with all these emotions,
Hmm.
and especially, I guess, at a particularly young age when this
So
everything
much
does feel,
happening.
yeah, everything's so live and raw, and
It
it can
feels too
be
much. Yeah, when you're a teenager,
absolutely,
everything feels like the end of the world. Like
yeah,
one thing will happen in your life, and you can't think past it. You're just like, oh my God, like my world is ending, and it could be
yeah,
something so small, but you can't process it. So
mm,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And so talking now about obviously the your collection, Dreamers collection, which is obviously it's got a really simple blurb at the back, which I love. It's
Yeah.
collection of love, loss, and longing. And actually, there's so much depth to it. I absolutely love
Hmm.
the fact that it is kind of really simple and
Simple.
it's
Yeah, thank you.
enticing for for kind of welcoming you, enticing you to read the book.
Hmm.
But yeah, tell me a little bit about the thinking and the inspiration about calling it the Dreamers collection.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
really interested to know like the context of that and how that came about.
yeah, of course. Actually, I've got my book next to me, and I sort of actually spoke about this in my preface of my book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, would you like me to like read it out?
Yeah, I mean,
Or
whatever
sort of,
absolutely,
yeah,
whatever you'd
because
like. I
it
think it'd
sort
be
of just
really,
summarizes it all. Yeah,
yeah,
like
no, no, I
exactly
think it'd
what.
be great for the listeners. Yeah, just to kind of
Okay, okay. So
resonate.
this is like literally this is the opening. This is where I explained the thought process, why I called it what I called it.
Mm.
Um, and I wrote this during COVID, by the way. I was in my last year of university,
Uh,
drowning in assignments. What do I do instead of reaching those deadlines? I decided to write a book.
yeah.
So yeah. Um,
Okay.
okay, so I've always believed dreams were the mind's way of compensating for things absent in our lives. During the toughest times, I have dreams where I'm finally at ease, where I'm certain that I'll never experience another hardship again. If I miss my late grandmother, she shows up in my dreams, the same silver hair and that toothless grin. Outside my dreams, I remember my anxieties, the Uyghur Muslims in China, the COVID-19 pandemic, human corruption, which is as native to the world as the trees and its oceans. Sleep sometimes serves as the only relief. There's this belief in Islam where during those hours we're asleep, our soul is taken to barzakh, a realm beyond space and time. Perhaps this is why when we dream, our minds too take us to an alternate reality. Sometimes the dreams the mind conjures are euphoric. Other times, they reflect our deepest fears. This leads me to the title of this book, Dreams, a collection of dreams. I want to focus on that point when you awaken from a deep slumber, but want to fall back into bed because reality doesn't compare to the imagination. So, here's a compilation of prose and poetry that I hope will enrich your noons, give colour to your nights, make you feel like you're wide awake in the realms of barzakh. So
Yeah,
yeah, that
that's
sort of encapsulates the title and the book.
yeah, and it does it of course, and it does it really well, and it makes so and it gives so much context from I guess the intention
The
and purpose of you
intention, yeah,
wanting to write this book and for this collection in particular
yeah.
and I guess it was kind of making me think that there's a lot in terms of we hear nowadays when we think about I guess dreams and manifesting dreams and the idea of spirituality and all these kind of connections. How was it for you? Because we were talking about, when you were younger,
Hmm.
what role at this particular time, maybe, or even when you were younger, did faith play? I guess what role did it play in your life, and how did that impact what you kind of were choosing to write about?
Yeah. So to be fair, faith when I was younger was not it was something that I don't want to say indoctrinated. It felt I
Mm,
didn't really feel an attachment or emotional connection to it when I was younger.
mm,
We were raised in a like my dad. He's not like this anymore. But when we were younger, it was very black and white. Like,
mm,
you wear a hijab because Allah says so. You
mm,
fast because that's what it says in the Quran.
mm,
Girls, wear hijab always, because it says because that's what you have to do. And there was no teaching
mm,
behind why things were done. There was no there
mm,
was we weren't explained the wisdom behind things, and so naturally you become so bitter
mm,
over a religion that feels so restrictive,
mhm,
and sort of feels like a prison almost. And so I don't want to say I resented faith when I was younger, but I didn't really feel a strong connection to it. It was just something that I had to follow.
mm,
um, but when I started college, my parents forced me to pick religious studies, Islam, as one
mm,
of my subjects. And
mm,
till this day, I'm so grateful and so blessed that they made that decision for me. I wouldn't have made it for myself.
mm,
I took religious studies, Islam, and my teacher Kay, who, if he's listening to this, I'd probably, he probably hears this from all his students and everyone that he's taught, because he really leaves a big impact in every heart that he's taught. But he just made this religion. He beautified it
mm,
to an extent where you could not help but fall in love. Like the stories he would tell, the feeling behind everything. He would explain things in such a way that even if a non-Muslim was to hear it, they would be just taken back
mm,
by the sheer beauty of the religion.
mm,
He was a storyteller. Just the way he would talk about Islam felt like it was like a story, and that's something that spoke to me because I love stories.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
so I think college time is actually when I started to really develop this love for the religion, this appreciation for it, and this understanding for it, and the wisdom behind Allah's teaching. And um, I it's actually when I started writing Islamic poetry, and started to center a lot of the stuff that I wrote around Islam. Before that, all my stories were like, Caucasian female protagonist about the Western experience, things that I didn't really fully understand myself.
Mm,
That's what I was writing about. And now for the first time, I'm I just completely the narrative shifted, and now I'm writing about things that are about
mm.
people that are like me, about my religion, and I'm proud of it, and I'm writing about it. So
Yeah, and I think so much of the experience you've shared, I'm sure that would, resonate with a lot of people that are kind of, listening in, what you were saying about that, and maybe initially not having that kind of emotional connection, and then the
connection,
way
yeah.
it slowly developed. And, and I
Hmm.
think it's really lovely to hear how, your, you know, um, teachers is, I guess, inspired that love,
Yeah,
for faith
100%. He
and
nurtured it, and he,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
and again, just as a side point, but there's a reason why teaching is a almost like a prophetic
Yeah,
profession, because
100%.
you
Yeah.
know the idea of teacher student, I mean that relationship is really is so
It's
sacred
so profound.
because of
Yeah,
the
it's so
yeah
sacred.
because of the impact it can have. So I
Yeah.
think that's really amazing to hear. Um, so let's go into the collection itself. So your first, I mean, you've kind of divided it into. I was kind of referring it to as a series. I know that's not maybe the right way, or chapters, and I'm not sure maybe how to actually, um, like,
Chapters.
yeah,
That works.
yeah,
That's how I
chapters
refer
good.
to them as.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of like three main chapters, and your first
Yeah.
one is it's called Isra and Khalid. So,
Hmm.
and there's a little kind of note which says these are 41 excerpts that tell the story of these individuals and their relationship. Um, so I've got two bits to this question, but I'll ask you the first one first.
Sure.
Why was it important for you to give a platform for these specific stories related, to this kind of relationship between, two people?
Yeah. And I love this question. I love answering this whenever somebody asks.
Mm.
I'm gonna sort of take it as and I'm not gonna change your question, but I'm gonna
Okay,
kind
okay.
of speak it through the lens of like why is it important to talk about maybe relationships like halal relationships and stories about Muslim love.
Okay, yeah.
If I take it from that angle,
Mm.
um, would that be okay? I don't
Yeah,
know if
of
I'm
course.
understanding
Please
it
do.
right.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. That's
Okay.
fine.
Awesome. Right. So I on maternity leave right now, but I work at an all girls Muslim school, and I'm an English teacher at that school. I've been working there for a few years, and we've had this epidemic where these teenage girls, yes, from our year sevens to our year 11s, they were picking up these books that at first glance they appeared to be these innocent teenage romances, but they turned out to be anything but that. Um, Books that are not appropriate for girls of that age for our faith. Just not appropriate at all. And we kept our teachers, we came together and kept thinking, why is it that our girls keep reaching for these kind of books? We've installed they are in an environment where we live and breathe Islam, where we're always talking about the difference between halal and haram, and what is allowed for us and what isn't. And so why is it that these girls, they know what's right and wrong? Why are they consuming this kind of literature? And I think the answer was actually so obvious. I think that we as women, we're wired to love. I think
Mm,
like Allah, He's designed us with this softness, like this desire for connection, for romance, and so it's not surprising that these young girls, especially Muslim girls growing up in a society like this, it's not surprising that they're naturally curious about love, and
mm,
maybe them reading these books is their way to sort of understand it.
mhm.
I'm not like speaking for every single female, by the way, because I
Yeah,
know not everybody loves love, and
yeah,
some people roll their eyes at it and finds it
yeah.
completely cringe. But I think it's fair to say that a vast majority of women, love is something that we desire. And these young girls living, Muslim girls living in this society, they see the way that love is portrayed in media. Love gets tangled up with lust. It gets,
Mm,
with possession, and this, really horrible situationship culture where people go through partners like they're trying on shoes. This is what you see on social
mm,
media, on TikTok and Instagram. You see people, non-Muslims, even Muslims, actually going into these
mm,
relationships and having their heart broken, and boyfriends, girlfriends, all of that.
mhm,
And these Muslim girls, they sort of develop a very warped understanding of love because
mm,
of this. Um, and so that's the first thing. And I think the second thing is there's a huge misconception when it comes to love in our religion. I
mhm,
think that a lot of us think that Islam is too serious for it, and
mhm,
that like it's haram to be tender.
mm,
And like obviously that's so completely wrong, because like Islam is literally like it's a romantic faith.
mm,
Um, it's you know our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's the walking Quran, he's the blueprint of how we're meant to live. He showed us that love isn't just allowed. He showed us that it's something celebrated, it's nurtured. And I actually talk about this in one of the pieces in my book, in the Isran Khalid section, page 22. I wrote, love is in the subtle things. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Aisha would race, and he'd let her win just to make her smile. When she'd comb his hair or drink from a cup he'd drunk from, drink from a cup and he'd drink from the same exact spot. This was the messenger of Allah. He was lying on his wife's lap, reading Quran while she was on her menses. That was what he would do. He took his last breath, not in some battlefield or in the masjid. He literally took his last breath in his wife's arms. What's more romantic than that? And then there's Khadija, his first love. Years after she passed away, just the sight of her necklace you'd bring him to tears. And when someone asked him about her, he said, I was blessed with loving her. Her love was nurtured in my heart by Allah himself. Like, just hearing about that, like how can you say that Islam isn't romantic? And there's like, I think that's the kind of love that we need to revive in our stories, like not fairy tales, not like the cringe, the fluff, but love that's rooted in religion, in God, and within the halal scope that Allah provided us with. And I think young Muslim girls, they deserve to read about stories that don't confuse them, because Western stories are very confusing. They tell you one thing when your religion, and our religion is teaching us something else. And, I think those sort of books that they read, they tell you that love is about pain, about drama, about having your heart broken, and they deserve to read stories about love that doesn't teach them that.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think, it's true, just to completely echo everything that you said, because the Prophet ﷺ was the embodiment of love. And again, the whole concept of love and experiencing love, it's just that reminder that it's actually the love of Allah that we're experiencing it, that even through our love for each other as whether it's parents or our partners or our children, it's actually a manifestation of Allah's love in our life. And I think you're right, we don't get to see enough of that. We see too much of the superficial aspects of love in society. And so I think that's why, the Dreamers collection, which you've written, is such a beautiful balance of, I guess, the things that are missing, right? Especially, potentially for young people and young girls that we've spoken about. Now, I did have a second.
From the heavens high above, you brought a message down with love. Through the messengers you chose to guide the hearts that only the darkness knows. أرسلت لنا الهدى عن طريق الأنبياء، هي رحمتك للعالمين، هي رحمتك للعالمين. Every heart that lost its way found its path in what you gave. Through the words the prophet spoke, guiding hearts that only the darkness knows. أرسلت لنا الهدى عن طريق الأنبياء، هي رحمتك للعالمين، هي رحمتك للعالمين. أنت الرحمن، أنت الرحمن. أرسلت الهدى للعالمين للعالمين أرسلت الهدى أرسلت لنا الهدى عن طريق الأنبياء هي رحمتك للعالمين هي رحمتك للعالمين هي رحمتك للعالمين
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the book club show on Inspire 105.1 FM. My name is Imrana Mahmood, and on today's show I'm joined by Sai Assari, and we've been discussing her beautiful collection of prose and poetry called the Dreamers Collection. So Sai is a self-published author of this book. She writes under the name of Dawn's Fragrance on Instagram, so please do give her a follow. Her work explores themes of religion, culture, love, and loss. And just in the first half of the show, we've spoken a little bit about the inspiration behind the book, about the title of the book. Just before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the kind of concept, I guess, of love, but how that is rooted in our faith as Muslims. The importance, I guess, of recognizing Islam has that beauty within it, and how do we engage, I guess, with our faith on those terms and not let it be too influenced by more the superficial nature of the way love is spoken about generally in society. So we were talking a little bit about that, about almost the importance also of looking at the prophetic example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his embodiment of love when he was interacting with those around him. So Sai has included really beautiful examples within her collection about, you know, with his relationship with Sayyidina Aisha, Sayyidina Khadija as well, radiallahu anha. So really, really lovely examples to kind of, I think when you're reading, to really sit with and, you know, reflect deeply. So I just wanted to go and kind of go a little bit further on in the collection itself. And, you know, it was an absolute pleasure, you know, Sai, to read your book. And it was also really lovely to see the illustrations as well. So firstly, obviously the book cover itself, but also there are illustrations on some of the pages within the collection. And I mean, and I will just point out pages 46 and 47.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thing for me to say, but they literally are like two words
Yeah.
because it, you know, and you know, thinking about, you know, time passing, and
Mhm.
I don't know, just reading your, you know, real depth of your writing, and then to come to those pages, it really did stop me in my tracks, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, you know. So I thought it's such a it had really big impact, I think, as I was reading the collection.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a bit of a side. My question, coming on to the question, is
Yeah.
yeah, kind of, how did you come up with the idea of the illustrations? Who did you work
Yeah,
with? And yeah, how
absolutely.
did you bring that to life?
Yeah, so it would be such a dishonor, you know, if I don't mention my sister in this writing process. She's actually, I think, yeah, she's been on the radio,
Mm.
and she's
Yeah.
artist Nadia Hussein, and she's been had an interview with her.
Mm.
So we are all very familiar with her, but she was very involved in this whole process. You know, as we all know, my sister's an artist, and so let me sort of paint the scene. So yeah,
Mm.
I sort of touched upon this before. I have this Instagram account, And my followers have been asking me for a long time coming, Sai, when are you going to publish a book? You're writing all these poets and poems and you're teasing us, but when will you actually produce something? And, for us to actually buy and keep and have in our hands. So I've been sort of toying with this idea for a year. And then, it hits, crunch time. It's, last year of uni, midst of COVID. I've got like so many deadlines. I've got, barely any time to get anything done. And then while I'm knee deep in all of this, I'm just thinking to myself, wouldn't this be a good idea to a good time to actually publish something? I don't know what I was thinking, probably just delirious from all the pressure, but I started, me and my sister were like, I told her, this is a thing I really want to just get it out of the way. I just want to write it. And put it out there. My sister was like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's do it. We had literally 3 weeks, like 3 weeks. I hadn't even actually written all of it. I think I was only halfway through the book. We were doing a countdown live on my social media, like, day 15 of before the release of Dreamers Collection, day 14, 13, so on. And I didn't even have an editor at this point. I didn't even have a cover for the book, so I really don't know where I thought I was going with this. It was like destined for failure. But my sister, she and I really needed a cover. I had a name sorted, but I needed a cover, and I didn't know what to go for. I didn't really have any idea of what I wanted on the front page, and I contacted an artist on social media that I followed, and I spoke to her about my book and the vision that I had. And bless her, she produced something, but it wasn't quite what I wanted. It didn't align to what I had envisioned in my head. And I just thought, you know what, this isn't I don't see this as the cover. And I was really distraught over it, because now I've got like how many days, like 20 days until I'm meant to be releasing this book, and like everyone's holding their breath waiting. And then my sister goes, "Wait, hold on, I'm an artist." And I'm like, "Yeah, you are." And she's like, "Why don't I do it?" And I'm like, "Would you?" And she's like, "Yeah, I would." And so, she's a traditional artist. She doesn't do digital art. She draws on canvas, paints on canvas and paper. But literally, like, one night she went to one of my friends, she does digital art. My sister just went to her house, spent 9 hours there, learning how to use Photoshop, Procreate, learning how to draw on a tablet. She learned that, she figured that out, and then she created this cover for me, using the reference pictures that I had sent her, and she produced this beautiful cover, and in 9 hours. And I don't know, it was the miracle in the making. And then I also said, you know what, like, why don't we do some illustrations, some pictures to accompany some of the words, because I really wanted to make her more. I've always dreamt of, co-writing something, and her being the illustrator, me being the writer, and this felt like the moment to do that. She didn't have time to illustrate the whole thing, of course, so we just had to sort of go through it, pick the important parts where it would be suitable, where it would have an impact. And so I picked some sections of the book, and she went ahead and illustrated them. But the part that you were mentioning, the time passes bit, I don't want to. I know, to those that are listening and haven't read the book,
we don't do
I don't want to ruin it, but I'm going to say it in the most
that's
vaguest. I'll say it in the most vaguest way sort of possible, because I want to answer your question.
Sure.
So there's a turning point in the book. Something happens, and then the main character needs time to process that, what's just happened. And I felt like, when you go through something so monumental, you, even as a person, you sometimes you don't know how to process it. Like, your mind goes blank, everything goes blank. And there's just a sort of void and emptiness for a while, until your brain can make that connection of, of reality and what's happened. So that sort of blank section, it's sort of meant to, it forces almost the reader to take a breath and to stop. My book is something that you could finish in one sitting, but that part, I put it there because even those who wanted to just sort of get, read it and get it out of sort of get out of the way, or they were sort of dying to sort of finish the book. It still, even those people, it just forced them to take a moment, like a breather, because
Yeah.
that's really important. And the sort of the leaves, the time passes. It's sort of, when winter comes and the trees lose their leaves, like the leaves falling, it shows the passing of time. And that's why I decided that it would be really nice to have the leaves falling, and to use those two blank pages.
Yeah, and they were definitely used really, really well. I mean, like I said, I
Thank
definitely found it
you.
really impactful, and I think, yeah, because we live in a world at the moment, everything is so fast paced, and I think
Yeah,
even when it comes to, and it's what we spoke about earlier when we talk about whether or not we are dealing well with our emotions and feelings. I mean, to be honest, the only way I think we can truly do that is by slowing down, and it is by really giving ourselves time to process things. And I think
processes. Yeah,
sometimes we either don't find the time to do that, or I would say even to the extent that we almost are avoiding to do that. So we allow ourselves to keep, we just constantly saying, oh, but we're busy and this, I'm too busy for this and that.
100%. Yeah,
Um, so I think you're right, and I think it's almost personified through the book, because you're reading, this beautiful story, and then this moment comes, and actually you are forced to pause. And I think it's even maybe a good reminder just for life, the
yeah,
fact that actually there needs to be time that
to
you
process
have to,
things.
yeah, exactly, and that could be obviously anything, and during any experience. So. And I wonder if this might be a really good time, actually, Sai, if you are happy to invite you to maybe share something that
Yeah,
you could read from the book. I'd love to hear it.
absolutely. I'd be so honored to. It's okay. Let me see. Um, I think, and let me choose something that kind of ties in with something that I've mentioned earlier. And
Okay.
this is about how in our culture and our tradition, it's so hard to talk about feelings, almost taboo, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll give a bit of context behind this poem that I'm about to read out. It was again during COVID, winter months, and my poor dad, he got really, really, he got, he became really, really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we thought it was COVID at the time, pneumonia. This is at a time where people were, it was so unfortunate. People were passing away from the virus. You were hearing stories left, right, and center about somebody, people's grandparents that were dying alone in the hospital. No one was allowed to visit them. About, the uncle that you would see in the masjid, and you saw him the other day, and now you've just found out of his passing, and we were losing people, and it was without warning, and it was such an upsetting time, and everyone had that fear that who's next, will it be somebody that I love, will it be me? And so when my dad felt sick during this time, obviously we all had those fears and thoughts in our heads, and we thought, you think the worst possible scenario, and you think, what's going to happen to him, is he going to make it? And alhamdulillah, my dad's usually such a strong person. He really is a mountain. And to see him like all shriveled up and weak and in bed and not being able to move really did something to us. And we're not really a family that is affectionate with each other. We don't say I love yous, we don't hug each other, we don't tell each other we're proud of each other. But I actually think this moment sort of made us think and change all of that. But I would it was really difficult for me to watch him
Yeah, of course.
sort of declining, and we didn't know what was wrong with him, which was a scary part. And I would sit next to him, literally, like I wouldn't move. I had a stool next to his bed, sat there for hours and hours, and like just holding his hand and trying not to cry, because my dad is very emotional, so he would probably cry as well, and it would probably make him quite scared. um so I'm thinking all of these things, and I want to tell my dad, I want to be like, Dad, I love you so much, and we'll get through this, and I'm here, you have me. But it's like really awkward. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
And language is a barrier between us. He understands, Bangla is his first language. It's the language that he primarily speaks and understands. My Bangla is, broken.
Sure.
And so I couldn't actually express my thoughts to him in the way that I wanted to.
Mhm.
And so naturally, you turn to writing, isn't it? I, popped open my laptop and I just wrote how I felt and
Mhm.
sort of I was writing to him in a sense.
Mhm.
And so this is what I came up with. Okay, so when I was 5, I couldn't doze off if my father wasn't beside me. When I was 7, I'd wait by the window until he came home. When I was 13, wearing his nightgown made me feel like the safest creature in all the world. At 15, I handed all my fears over to him and watched him break them into pieces. They say adulthood is a land where you have to look up for yourself, but they haven't met my father. 7 years later, and there he is, standing like a mountain behind me, tall and sturdy and unshakable. He makes me breakfast when he finds me rummaging through the kitchen cupboards early morning, drives me to the ends of the country, says, "No daughter of mine will wait at bus stops when I have a car."
Mhm.
When the darkness hounds me, he stands beside my door and prays in words I don't understand. But they sound like oceans of flowers, all blooming. I keep them locked away in the crevice of my heart. I hug him tight that winter he falls ill. The thought of being without him is a needle in my throat, an open wound unhealing. "Are you praying for me?" he asks, voice weakening and hoarse. I rest my head on his frail shoulder. "Yes, Baba." Hero to all my stories, whose skin's the colour of wet sand. When I was younger, I thought he had built our house with his own two calloused hands. I always am. So after I had written that and published it in the book and stuff, my parents they came to me and they said, "Okay, so you've published this book, but what is it about? Like, we
Mhm.
can't understand it.
Yeah.
Can you translate?" And so I
Mhm.
spent an evening sitting there, just translating the parts that really I knew would hit home and I knew would mean a lot to them because I wrote about them in this book. I wrote about my mom. I wrote about how important mothers are and motherhood, and obviously I wrote about fathers and I wrote about my dad.
Mhm.
And so I sat there translating this poem to him the best way that I could, broken, starring, you
Mhm.
know, barely actually managing to,
Mhm.
find the words in Bangla that actually would pack to punch,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
but I did it, and he like I said, my dad's a very emotional guy,
Yeah.
and so you can see like the dam breaking behind his eyes, and he just
Yeah.
like yeah, he was got very emotional. And that weekend, he actually took that book with him to his sisters in London, and he showed it to everyone. He was like, "Look, my
Oh,
daughter's
that's
book.
so
Look, she wrote
lovely.
about me," and he like
Yeah.
dog-eared the page, and he was showing everyone. So that was really meaningful because it was like the
Yeah.
first time. I think it was the first time my dad probably thought, "Oh my God, she actually does love me," because all I hear is her complaining.
That's so lovely. And I think and yeah, and it's so important that we're able to, yeah, just share these things. And you're right. I think we come from maybe communities and I mean it's across obviously lots of communities and cultures, but in terms of our lived experience, I think we know that there's sometimes a bit of a disconnect emotionally or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. And definitely,
Hmm.
language plays a
Language,
massive
100%. Yeah.
barrier almost, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, for example, with me and my children, I find it very hard, sorry, very easy. I can say I love you and they say it to me and
Hmm.
it's all good and we're very huggy and affectionate.
Oh, that's really nice.
But yeah, but I guess with parents, because translating I love you to like, for example, in Urdu, it just
Yeah.
feels a bit cringe.
Does it? Yeah.
It's just such a horrible thing to say, but and
Because
then
it's not,
trying to
you're not
say I
used
love
to
you to my
it.
parents would also felt
Yeah.
weird. So
Yeah.
there were certain words, of course they were expressed through actions, but through
Yeah.
it,
That's it.
kind of different.
It
And no, I really appreciate that you shared that because it reminded me actually. I remember I'd one of the first poems that I think written was for an English lesson, and it was about my dad as well. And I
Yeah.
remember my teacher saying, "Oh, look, why don't you share that with him?" And I just thought, "What? Why would I do that?"
Well, exactly. I know the
But
feeling.
I
Yeah.
did, and I saw the impact. And I think, subhanAllah, you're right. When we talk about language, when you talk about communication, because that's what we're really talking about here, right? There's the
Hmm.
communication of hearts, and there's communication between souls. And sometimes that's spoken, sometimes it's unspoken. But it's all yeah, it's just
There's so many different ways to express love, and I think within
yeah.
our cultures, it's language is just not one of them. It is like you said, through
Mm.
action, like our parents cutting fruit for us, our dad
Yes,
buying
exactly.
multiple packages of things that we've told him that we loved once.
Yeah,
Like that's how they express
that's
their
right.
love, and they're not used
Exactly.
to hearing it. They're not used to it, and it's you can't blame them because they're
No,
not
of
used to it.
course.
But it's
Uh,
such a shame, isn't it? Because
yeah,
like
yeah,
Urdu is such a romantic language, like the
yeah.
poem, it's so rich in like
Yeah.
just the expressions, and it's such a shame that we can't use them for the people that we love because of that awkwardness that we
Yeah,
feel.
absolutely. No, no, it's so true. But that's I thank you so much. And I guess because we maybe got time for maybe another question or two. Um, Maybe just a little bit about both of the other kind of chapters of your book, and maybe you can just
Yeah,
share a little bit about that. So obviously the second chapter is called Heaven Sent,
yeah.
and the third, which is obviously the final one, is Days of November.
Hmm.
And I'm going to kind of connect a couple of questions. So, firstly, yeah, maybe speak a little bit about those chapters, but also that connection in your writing to nature and seasons, because obviously
Yeah,
there's
it's a lot of it.
a common theme which I absolutely love.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, whatever kind of thoughts you have on both of those kind of aspects of the book would be
Yeah, sure.
great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Okay, so the second chapter of the book is called Heaven Sent.
mm,
And Heaven Sent was really inspired by uh, the idea of fragrance in Islam.
mm,
So, especially in correlation to how Jannah is described.
mm,
There's like this recurring image in the Quran and Hadith about how paradise having this beautiful scent, this musk, this comforting fragrance that reaches the soul before it reaches anything else. And there's this idea that the believer that spends their life in the worship of Allah, when they pass away, their grave is filled with this beautiful musk. The Prophet ﷺ, he loved to smell good. He always smelled amazing. And scent in our religion, cleanliness, scent. I just thought that would be a really beautiful title for the chapter that talks about religion. And
mm,
I just thought it just sounded so nice. Heaven sent. It just,
yeah,
how lovely does that sound? So it
yeah,
just, yeah, probably for
yeah.
the aesthetic reasons as well.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. No, no, that's wonderful. And what about this the importance, I guess, of including that aspect of nature.
Of nature,
Um,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
because that's a lot that comes up a lot in this second chapter.
mm,
Yeah, so nature, seasons, they show up a lot in my writing.
mm,
And I think actually nature is sort of just me as a writer, just sort of how I a technique that I use.
mm,
It seasons, nature. It's how I sort of they reflect like emotions that I don't actually know how to describe directly. Like for
mm,
example, I don't know, like this. So I don't know, like the way the light softens just before Maghrib, like how
mm,
the dawn breaks, how that color in this, like when you look up at the sky and like that soft pink hue, and like
mm,
how your heart just expands. Like sometimes these feelings that we feel, we can't even explain them, and
mm,
nature has that sort of power over us.
yeah.
um
I
and I
think.
feel like,
Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead. Yeah.
so I feel like like rain, wind, like bare trees, they all mirror things that we feel, like grief, hope, healing.
Mm,
Like the seasons when they pass, like winter, like how winter symbolizes death and loss, and spring symbolizes life and new beginnings.
mm,
And just the mental imagery of nature is so beautiful. It's like painting a picture with your words. And when
mm,
people read my poetry, I really want them to be able to imagine beautiful things. And that's why I incorporate so much of nature into everything that I write.
And I think it's for that reason it's very easy to kind of really deeply connect with the book, and it's for that
Yeah,
reason because these are everyday experiences that we feel and we experience and we witness, and then to have that in words communicated as in a way which is also then exploring emotions. I think that is why there's such resonance to the book and reading it.
thank you.
So I guess my kind of last question to kind of bring the show to an end, which is really sad. I could speak to you all day, Sai.
That is Allah, your Lord. To him belongs the dominion. There is no deity except him. How can anyone behold such a thing and not believe? So um extract is deeply personal to me because I feel like when I went through labor and gave birth to my baby, it really affirmed the existence of God for me. Like, just simply what a woman has to go through to bring life into the world. The fact that I'm looking at my child and I'm thinking, I can't believe that I grew you inside me. Like, subhanallah, it just makes you wonder, like, how can people not believe in God when they see miracle of life every day? And I wanted to bring that into my writing, like just remind people how remind people of religion, like the beauty of creation, how amazing Allah is. Just like our faith, just talk about it throughout the book.
No,
Um,
exactly. And I think it's such
yeah,
a lovely way to kind of end the show on. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm really
you're
excited that I
welcome.
got to have an exclusive because you've been,
I have to publish it now because I've
yes.
spoken
No, you're
about
going to have
it.
to exactly. And I hope inshallah it does. And it's something, we'll have to have you back to talk about
Definitely,
that and share more
inshallah.
poetry from the new collection. But thank you so
Of
much.
course.
It's been an absolute joy speaking with you. So for listeners out there, we were talking to Sai Assari about her Dreamers collection. Please give her a follow on Dawn's Fragrance on Instagram, and hopefully, inshallah, because now she's writing again, she's going to have a new book published. There'll be lots to catch up on as well,
Catch up when,
inshallah.
yeah.
But so that's the book club show. I'll be back, inshallah, in a couple of weeks with a new book and a new author. Until then, please keep us in your